Way back in the spring of 1990, 10-year-old me was given a $5 allowance. In search of something to spend my money on, I came upon something fantastic at my local convenience store newsstand. It was then that I started a lifelong obsession with the gold standard of sequential art, the comic book. Now, as an old man, I have decided to open up some old boxes and dig into my comic book collection. I decided it's time for me to review and analyze the illustrations and artists that made me comics crazy. Hey everyone, this is Chris Crazy House, and I'd like to welcome you all to another episode of Chris Crazy House Presents Comics Crazy. We are delving into the early 90s, 1993, with Youngblood Strikefile, and we are continuing with the Diehard story. So this is part 2 of the story that we looked at last time in Youngblood Strikefile, where the character of Diehard is on a solo mission to go rescue the now cyborg super patriot who has been taken over by this evil corporation called Cyberdata, and we're going to be getting into that very soon. Let's start off with the cover. This was a very popular cover from back then. I remember it very well, seeing it not only in advertisements, because it was well advertised before this book came out. And when I saw it, I was like, this looks like a very cool cover. I'm wondering what's going on here. And once we got the issue, we know that now it's going to be Diehard not only rescuing Super Patriot, but actually having to fight him towards the end. And we see the character of Diehard actually has some battle damage here. So they're adding a little bit more to this image where we got half Diehard and half Super Patriot, but the Diehard side is looking a little rough here, where his mask is ripped open. We can actually see his teeth, see him gritting. His eyes are kind of flashing red. And you can see some battle damage on his chest where his suit is ripped. And this looks like it's going to be a battle for the ages. And once again, extremely popular cover from this time period. I remember it very well. And shout out to Raymond Leonard, because he did a homage to this cover with his own original comic book series, Agent Solo, where he had the character of Agent Solo fighting against his arch enemy, and he also had them both positioned on the front cover just like this. So shout out to that brother. I know he was very inspired by this age of comics and Rob Liefeld himself. So I've always loved his comic books, his independent books. So if you are a fan of classic action and these types of comics, go pick up Agent Solo by Raymond Leonard, and I'll post a link so you can go find him. He has a popular YouTube channel here as well. So let's get on to the review of Youngblood Strikefile number 2. And I forgot to do something in the last episode. I forgot to give a shout out to the actual inker of this book, Danny Mickey. I mentioned the art by Rob Liefeld. I mentioned the colors by Ollie Optics, but I never mentioned the inks by Danny Mickey. And I'm sorry for doing that. Inkers don't get enough credit as they should. I know for me personally, inking can be very tedious and it's a very time-consuming thing to do, but I appreciate all the inkers out there. I know it's not an easy job, and it can change artwork for the better or for the worse. But in this case, Danny Mickey did a great job inking over Rob Liefeld's artwork, and he has been part of a lot of very classic pinups and also like very good covers as well as an inker. So I want to give a shout out to him. And he actually does an amazing job with this book in particular. So let's take a look inside. We start right off into the action where Diehard has broken in to the Cyberdata facility, and he's kind of like in the underground parts of it, in the guts of the facility. So you're going to see a lot of pipes and paneling just to kind of show that he's in like the lower levels of this place. And we're already see Diehard is flying at the guards in this area, and the guards are kind of off panel. You see their hands and their boots and stuff, and Diehard is kind of flying directly at them, and they're getting knocked over. Their guns are flying in the air and everything like that. And we get right here to the first double splash page. Once again, just like the other story, this story concentrates a lot on action. Okay, the narration you'll see in these little panels right here are basically Diehard talking to himself. So very reminiscent of what Larry Hama did with a lot of the Wolverine comics, where Wolverine is kind of thinking to himself while he's fighting and in the action. That's what we have here. I know that's kind of where they got that from, because that style of storytelling became very popular during like the late 80s, early 90s. But first splash page here of Diehard fighting some droid soldiers, or shock troops as they're called in this book. And the only thing that I will say is inconsistent about this is if you look here, he's obviously fighting human soldiers, but you never see what these human soldiers look like. They have the orange hands, or the orange like gloves and boots, and the green suits. It always switches when you see a full body of them, is these robotic type droids. Now this would have worked if we can maybe see like the human soldiers as well, and the ones that are in like the battle armor, next to them. That would have made a lot more sense, but we never see that. It switches back and forth, and you don't notice it unless you're someone like myself who analyzes artwork and comics. But when you're young, you don't really look at that. You're just looking at how cool the artwork looks, and watching Diehard beating up these soldiers. Cool shot, by the way. I don't know if I would have done this where the bad guy kind of flying out of the screen is taking up an entire page. I get it. This is probably another page to sell. You can sell this whole double splash page together and sell that, but I probably wouldn't do something like that. And we get a better shot of the so-called shock troops and all their robotic armor. I appreciate these ones look a little bit different from how Rob Liefeld had been drawing a lot of these different robot droids or whatever. So if you followed him all the way from New Mutants to X-Force to Youngblood, he loves drawing these types of henchmen, where these like robotic droids or henchmen or whatever. This seemed to be very popular back then, and I guess they were just great cannon fodder for the heroes to beat up. And we got Diehard kind of diving through them with his shield in hand. And once again, another shot of him kind of twirling his shield. And this time you see like the lighting of the shield being reflected on this battle droid here in the background. I like that. That actually shows something cool, that they actually even took time to do something like that in a book like this, where you can actually see some of the colors reflecting off of their armor. So once again, shout out to the colorists. This is new for this time period. I think once again they really achieved a great look as far as the colors go when showcasing how you see different light reflections going on with the armor and stuff like that. Very well done with the colors in this book, and very inspirational to someone like me who likes to use a lot of different techniques with digital color in my own books. Here's another big double splash page of Diehard sitting here fighting these droids. So you could literally transfer this splash page to here and not really lose anything as far as story-wise. This seems to be a very randomized, depiction of him fighting off these robots and these droids. There really is not a lot of continuity to it. So that's if I can give a critique to that, I'll say that, because there's not really a lot of continuity here. You could just put these pages at random, and they might have even drawn it like that, because I know Todd McFarlane was notorious for that, for just drawing random pages and then assembling the book later on. So Rob Liefeld might have even done that, where he's basically just drawing one random splash page after another, just drawing what he felt like drawing, and has someone kind of come up with the plotting of it later on. Or excuse me, or I guess you could say fix it in post, as they say in the movie industry, where you just basically re-edit basic scenes in films to make a whole story. But this is actually a very cool shot, not gonna lie. I actually enjoy it. I would use this as a, if I was going to be doing the writing or plotting for this, I would use this as a shot of the heroes actually in trouble. So Diehard, in the dialogue, you can see that he doesn't seem to have a problem with this. He even says this shouldn't be a problem. But I would use this as the heroes actually being overwhelmed. That would be like my idea for what I'm looking at in this panel. Just my humble opinion, and coming in as a, you know, a Monday morning quarterback here, but just saying that's what I would do for this shot. Once again, you see him, some more action. This is actually a cool shot of him kicking out of these bad guys, but once again, it's inconsistent. that's why I'm saying these pages probably were put together at random. Very cool looking, but you notice once again, now we're fighting human guards again. And they got on boots and, you know, the typical soldier pouches. And even right here, you see them here. You never get to see their faces. The face is always obscured by something or being knocked off the panel. But these are not the same characters that were just fighting Diehard right here. Obviously, it's painfully obvious of that. So I would have more consistency if I can give a critique and give you guys some pointers as far as being a comic book artist. Be consistent in the fight scenes that you're putting out there. Don't just have random panels and pages like this, because you can kind of lose what the consistency and the composition of your story when you do that. And, you know, Rob Liefeld is known for these types of backgrounds. Obviously, that was not the main point of this book. It was more about the character arc, or the character art, sorry. But these backgrounds are just basically pipes and panels, and looks like you're basically like the characters are fighting inside of a computer. That's what it looks like to me. Like when we used to build PCs back in the day. You're fighting inside of a motherboard or something like that. So we turn the page here and we finally get to the showdown with the character of Super Patriot. And it's a double splash page where you kind of have to turn the book, you know, upside down horizontally to get the full effect of it. But Super Patriot has shown up in his new garb, where he's kind of got the American flag mask and the big shoulder pads. And these are supposed to be cannons sticking out for where his forearms should be. But, I mean, they basically just look like a bunch of hollow tubes. Like, when I look at them now, the only thing I can think about is some of the metal shelves that I helped to construct for my wife's living room and kitchen. But that's what it looks like here. But they're supposed to be cannons. And he's facing down Diehard here. And we got an extreme close-up. You know, excuse the pun. This is Extreme Studios. But an extreme close-up of the new Super Patriot looking down at Diehard. And you can kind of see that his face is, you know, absolutely emotionless. He doesn't remember Diehard. So we know a fight is about to ensue. And sure enough, we get there, and Super Patriot is unloading his payload at Diehard. So all of the whatever energy or bullet blast that he has in these cannons, he's shooting at Diehard. And I think he says it's the equivalent of 10 tanks shooting at him at the same time. I think 10 tanks will make more of a mess than that. But, you know, this is a comic book, so we'll just go with the metaphor. And you know, he's being blown backwards. He uses his shield to block. And Diehard is thanking the people that worked on his shield, the lab boys that worked on it, because it helps him, it saves his life and saves him from getting blown to pieces. And we're going to get right in to the actual fight scene of Diehard and Super Patriot. Diehard bounces back, hits Super Patriot with a tackle. And you notice when we get more into these fight scenes like this, Rob even calms down a little bit on the backgrounds, which I think is a good idea, because sometimes these pipe backgrounds can be a little bit redundant. So it's nice to have a little bit of empty space there just to concentrate on the action. This panel right here, where I guess he's supposed to be like pushing. I don't know if he's pushing or smacking. It almost seems like he like basically smacked Super Patriot, which is kind of funny to me. But I think he's trying to hold him in place so he can hit him with his shield. And I guess we see the continuity of that later on here. Now, something I noticed, and I don't know what this is all about. You have to explain it to me. Maybe someone can explain it to me in the comments. I don't know why Diehard seems to have these pipes growing out of his back. Sometimes he has them, sometimes he doesn't. I guess that's to hold his shield, but you never see them when he's, when you see his actual back here. So sometimes they appear, sometimes they don't. This is the issue when you have continuity errors in your own work. Sometimes your character has certain gear on. If you're going to have a character with all this gear on, you need to be a little bit more consistent with what's going on from panel to panel and make sure it's still there. That's just my humble opinion. I'm not attacking Rob Liefeld because I don't hate him like some people do, but I'm just saying from an artist standpoint and to teach you young folks, we can learn from the successes of our idols and we can learn from their failures as well. Be consistent with your panel work. But great action sequence. I do like this panel as far as showcasing the fight scene between Diehard and Super Patriot. This is actually a really good action panel. So I'm assuming Super Patriot swats him back, so that causes Diehard to fly into a wall. And Diehard, in order to slow Super Patriot from charging at him, he takes his shield and throws it directly at his abdomen. This probably could have been a little bit more obvious in the drawing because I had to actually read the dialogue panels to figure out what was going on here. So I would make this a little bit more obvious that Diehard was throwing his actual shield, maybe pull him back a little bit and showcase him throwing the shield directly at us in the camera or something like that. Because that's one thing you notice about a lot of classic Captain America books. You always know when he's about to throw his shield or when he did throw it. It's very obvious what he's doing. This is not as obvious as it should be. So we continue more of the fight. And, this is pretty cool here. You should see a little bit of choreography of, Diehard moving out of the way, ducking down, and then jumping up to move out of the way of Super Patriot's hits. Now, while he's jumping in midair, Super Patriot actually catches him. But Diehard is able to spin around and put Super Patriot in a headlock. Now, I don't know why he did that because I don't think you're going to be able to choke out a Cyborg. But he did it anyway. He tried to choke him out, and it didn't work. He winds up getting thrown off again. And now Super Patriot has picked up something. I guess it's supposed to be some rock or some rubble. And he's about to crush Diehard with it. Okay, so this is supposed to be the final shot. It's supposed to be intimidating. The villain of your story is about to crush the hero. This is very classic from a lot of comic books. I do like the idea of kind of like having him lift up this heavy rock and, being somewhat submerged in shadow and all you can see is his eyes. It might work a little bit better if his eyes were a little bit more menacing. Just having these little goggle eyes, they're not as menacing as they should be. Maybe if his eyes glowed red or something like that, that will look a lot better. I would probably add a little bit more texture to the top of the rock. Because, yeah, this bottom part could be in shadow, but maybe the top part just to see what he's actually picking up to throw on top of Diehard would help. Because right now it just looks like one big shadow. You could almost say he's not even holding anything because you don't know exactly what it is. You just see some little rocks and pebbles falling down over him. So if I can give a critique, that would be it. But I do like this shot. I do like the low angle of Diehard being down on the ground and about to be attacked by the villain. That's a great way to leave off in a cliffhanger for your action of your books. But I would just say put a little bit more detail up here so I can see what's actually he's about to throw or drop on him, because that adds to the tension when you know that your hero is truly in danger. So that is it for part 2 of the Diehard story in Youngblood Strikefile. I hope you enjoyed it. We definitely will be doing part 3 where we conclude the battle between Diehard and Super Patriot. I hope that you liked my review and got everything I was saying. Once again, just to be clarify, I'm not one of these YouTubers or, comic book fans who hates Rob Liefeld. I don't, okay? I was a big fan when I was a teenager, and I did go through a period where everyone kind of laughed at his artwork. But now I have a lot of appreciation for him for not only the things that he accomplished, but his enthusiasm as a creator. I can appreciate that because I feel he and I are kindred spirits in that regard. But also not saying his artwork is perfect either, because it's not. There are some mistakes made in this, but I think we can talk about those mistakes and be constructive about it without trying to tear down a person, okay? So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you understood the pointers I was trying to give you all in this review. And I hope you join me here next time when we do part 3 of Youngblood Strikefile, the Diehard story. Anyway, folks, this is Chris Crazy House. I appreciate having you all here. Make sure you go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to this channel so that you know when I upload the new content, and make sure you share this with anyone else who is a fan of these classic comic book reviews. Anyway, this is Chris Crazy House signing out. Peace.